I'd like to thank JoJo, Audrey Sakasa, Steve and Dana Foray, Susan Fenn, EJ Murphy, and Monte Harris for the latest GoFundMe contributions. They helped me a lot, guys. I certainly appreciate it. Special extra shout out to Monte Harris too for really coming through for me. You know what you did, and I just wanted to publicly acknowledge it. It helped me. You went above and beyond, and it really helped me out. I'm also wearing an American Dope jacket. This is made by Al Profit's company. It says American Dope on it. It's a badass jacket. He had given it to me, I don't know, 2-3 months ago, and we were working on a different project together, and he's not like paying me to wear this. This isn't like a sponsorship thing, but I really like this jacket. This jacket's dope, and Al Profit basically opened the door for me. You know, I don't think I'd have as many subscribers. I wouldn't have a following on here if Al Profit hadn't opened the door. So I try to give him a shout out whenever I can. I'm going to be an executive producer on a documentary that he's putting together right now. And he's put together, what, like 10 amazing documentaries at this point. And I'm really excited that I'm going to be an EP on one of his films. He's also going to be an executive producer on my film, Idiot Savant. So if you want to go check out his clothing collection, AmericanDope.com. He's got some badass gear. So anyway, this is part 26 of my 5 years in federal prison. And where we had left off last time, a lot was going on. I'd started writing that girl. She's 19 years old. Her name was Gigi. And we had this like passionate pen pal love affair going on, even though we hadn't met in real life yet. And I was working on Wasting Town every day. At this point, I'd been in prison going on like 4 years now. And, you know, I worked on Wasting Town every day, and I was getting closer to completing it now at this point. I was getting to the point where I was almost happy with being able to say that it was done. And I'd gotten strung out with King, and then I got cut off with the whole Link debacle and the whole Vice Lord thing. And Chi-Town Brown, Tim Brown, had set me up, you know, asking me if I wanted a free shot of heroin. Of course I wanted a free shot of heroin. And now I'm in the hole. Also, my grandfather's in bad health. So all these things kind of happened at once, this confluence of some good, some bad, and now I'm stuck in the hole. And initially they put you like in a drunk tank kind of thing, you know, just like if you were going to county jail, and the lieutenant will come talk to you and see where you're going to be housed. Now, you know, it's not like in Shawshank Redemption where you're like shirtless and, you know, you're in some like pitch dark cave and the warden comes and like talks shit to you periodically. It's not what the hole's like anymore. Not in 2012 when I was doing it. It's just a segregated housing unit. It's a different part of it's like a jail inside of the prison. And a lot of times they'll give you a cellie. So it's like doing time, except you're, you know, like instead of going out, being able to go to the yard and recreation and the chow hall, you're locked in a cell all day long. And they come and they bring your meals 3 times a day through these little meal slots. People always ask, what's better, the feds or the state? And I think that federal prison's better for a number of reasons. But one of the main reasons, they give you 3 meals a day. You know, 3 hot meals. In California State Prison, when you go to breakfast, they give you a little bag lunch, and that's your lunch. It's like a bologna sandwich or a peanut butter and jelly every single day. The feds, they give you pretty good lunches. You get hamburger one day, you get chicken on the bone another day, chicken sandwiches on Tuesdays, Wednesdays is the hamburgers, fish Fridays, and they bring you all 3 of these meals right to your cell. And some holes have a shower in the cell, and some of them don't. Some of them, like, you actually have to be escorted to the shower. There's even some prisons where they bring the shower to your cell, where it's like this like portable sprinkler system that pretty much stops in front of your cell. They open up your cell, you walk out, and you shower in this little portable thing. I think they have that in ADX and the Supermax in Colorado, which, I mean, that's pretty interesting. But in Oxford, they didn't have showers inside the cell, so they only let you shower, I believe, once a week. I think you could shower on Fridays. And the lieutenant had come and talked to me while I was still in the tank, waiting to, you know, figure out if I was going to have a cellie or if I was going to be by myself, whatever he wanted to do. And I'm still high. You know, I'm still high from the shot that I had done in my hand with Chi-Town Brown earlier that day. So I'm still not really grasping that I got busted. I mean, I know I'm busted. I'm sitting there all loaded, but, you know, I'm not really tripping about it yet. And Lieutenant comes up to me and he says, "Why are you coming up dirty for heroin?" And I was like, "I have no idea, man. I don't do heroin. I don't know anything about heroin." He goes, "What are you in prison for?" I said, "Conspiracy to distribute heroin." It's like, "Uh-huh. And do you have any other felony convictions?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, and what is that?" I said, "Well, only one." "Go ahead. What is it?" I said, "Possession with intent to sell heroin." He's like, "So you have a possession with intent to sell heroin, a conspiracy to distribute heroin, and you don't do heroin." I was like, "I don't even know what heroin is." I was like, "That's really fucking funny, Leone." He goes, "Okay, man, check it out." So, you know, we're just, nobody else can hear us. We're in this, like, secluded, you know, we're in a tank, and, like, there's no one else, or there's no other inmates around. There's not even any other COs. It's just me in this drunk tank, and he's kind of standing, there's like, the old-fashioned kind of bars you see, you know, in, like, county jails. And he's standing at the bars, and he goes, "Okay, look, check it out, Leone. I'm going to make you a deal. If you can tell me 3 people that are dirty right now, I'll make this, I'll make the dirty drug test go away." And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, well, I know exactly what happened to Tim Brown. And I said, "Well, that, you know, Lieutenant, that, yeah, that sounds like a great deal, but I don't, like I said, I don't know anything about heroin. I don't know why I'm coming up dirty for opiates. I don't know anybody that I didn't even know there was drugs at this soft-ass prison." It's like, "Come on, Leone. 3 names, and we make this little charge go away." He said, "If not, you're not going to see DHO for a month." Now, what that means is DHO is disciplinary hearing officer. The DHO officer. You're not going to go see the DHO officer for a month, is what he's saying. And until you see the DHO officer, none of that time in the whole counts towards your whole sentence. You know, it counts towards your actual, like, federal prison sentence that you're doing, of course. Like, every day that you're locked up counts as time towards your sentence. But if you go to DHO and say they sentence me to 30 days in the hole, which is pretty standard for a dirty drug test in the feds, the whole time that I'm waiting doesn't count towards what that sentence is. So if I waited for 2 weeks and then I get sentenced to 30 days in the hole, then I'm doing those 2 weeks plus the 30-day sentence I'm getting. So people want to see DHO as quickly as possible. And he said, "Yeah, you're not going to see DHO for a whole month. So you're going to be completely by yourself for a month. I'm not going to allow you to have any books. I'm not going to allow you to have a radio. Only thing you can do is sit in there and masturbate." No, I didn't say that. But basically he's saying he was not going to give me anything. I'm not going to have a radio. Usually before you see the DHO officer, you get to at least have a radio. And then once a week they bring a book cart by, and you can pick pick 2 books out. And then you trade them back, you know, a week later. So at some prisons it's just 1 book. But he was telling me if I didn't tell on anyone that he was going to take all these, like, privileges that I was supposed to have anyway away. And I was literally going to be in real solitary confinement by myself with nothing to entertain myself except for masturbation. You know, which honestly, even that gets fucking old when you're doing it, like, you know, 25 times a day. You know, you're just going, it's like, it doesn't even do anything at that point. You know, so I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you, man." He's like, fuck it, Leone, fine. Ugh. And he comes and he you know, come here, CO. CO comes, I cuff up, and they put me in a cell by myself. And sure enough, no radio, no books, no nothing. Real solitary. And I'm like, I'm still high, so I'm like, yeah, whatever, and I pass out. Next day I wake up, and, you know, I'm by myself in there. And I'm like, all right, they're not going to break me, dude. And I started thinking to myself, too. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, he was pretty upset that I didn't tell on 3 people. Leads me to believe that everybody that they ever bust for dirties tells on 3 people. And that's why we never even see people go to the hole for it, because everybody's just telling on everybody, and nobody ever has to do any time. It's like a fucking pyramid scheme. So I'm sitting in there, and, you know, the first day sucks, you know. You get that thing that you get anytime you do heroin. You know, you get like the come down the next day where you're feeling all emotional. Day 2, it's getting worse. I'm getting more and more bored. They give you 5 little sheets of paper to write on, and they give you a pen that's this big, and it wobbles. You know, like it's not like a, you know, like this kind of pen is hard, and it's easy to write for a long time with it. But when you have one that wobbles, it's like it's really fucking difficult to write anything, especially when it's really small. So what people will do is they'll get paper, they'll roll it up, and they'll make like an extension, and they'll make the little teeny wobbling pen look like a long pen, and then you can write with it. But they only give you 5 sheets a week. So I started writing. I made my little makeshift, you know, pen extender, and I started writing with that. But then I ran out of paper, and I didn't have anything. That was like the only source of entertainment I had, was writing on those 5 pieces of paper. And I wrote very small front to back, but then I ran out. And so like now day 2, I'm like completely out of shit to do. Day 3 happens, day 4. And mail is behind in the hole, always. It always takes like about a week longer than it would take to, you know, to get mail in another part of the prison. And Gigi and I were writing every single day via Core Links, the email system. When I went to the hole, I knew her mailing address by heart, because I was always sending her like little cards that I made, little poems, whatever. So I sent her a lot of mail. So I knew her address by heart. So I sent her a letter, and I was like, hey Gigi, you know, I told her the truth. I was like, I slipped up and I relapsed and I got caught, I got a dirty, and they're talking about I'm not even going to see DHO for a month. I'm probably going to be in solitary for 60 days. And I love you, baby, even though I've never even fucking seen you in person. And you know how it is nowadays with the filters, you know? She shows up and she looks like fucking Tom or something. Why, May? So, you know, about a week goes by. I'm literally losing my mind in the hole. And everyday mail call is at, I want to say 6 p.m. And that's literally all I have to look forward to. They will wake you up at 4. They bring you your little breakfast, you know, tray through the meal slot. You eat, then you have to put the tray back. Then they come back, they feed you lunch. They let you go to recreation for 1 hour once a day. And what that is, it's just a big room with 1 pull-up bar, and that's it. And it's nice. I always signed up for it, and I'd go to it because it was just nice to get out of the cell, and I'd go do pull-ups. And I did push-ups and body squats. I had a little routine that I was doing in there. But then I'd come back, and I'd wait for mail call. That was like what I was living for at that moment. You know, I couldn't write every day, so I'm just waiting for mail call. And you'd see the CO walk by, and he'd have a stack of mail, and either he'd slow down right when he's getting to your cell, or he'd just walk right past. And him walking right past is like the most heartbreaking fucking thing you can ever imagine. It literally feels like a dagger goes in your fucking heart. You know, you're waiting all day. You put all of your, like, all of your happiness is contingent on you getting this piece of mail. Like, the cop would walk by and be like, it only takes 1. Are you sure there's not 1 for me, man? Sorry, Leone, not today. I felt like like George Young at the end of Blow. I talked to him today. He did the guest appearance. He's going to be on the album. We recorded it. That's done. But anyway, felt like him at the end of Blow. How his daughter never came to see me. That's how it started feeling when Gigi wasn't writing me. Another week goes by, and I'm just going crazy in there. I've never, I've been to the hole, but it would be like for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks. But I'd always have a celly, and I'd always have like books, and I'd have my radio, and it's amazing when all of that stuff gets taken from you simultaneously, how crazy you go. And I'm literally losing it in there. I'm having conversations with myself. Like, I'm like role playing with myself, pretending what it'll be like when I get out of prison and like to be around females again. I'm like, oh, hey Ryan, you look way different than you used to. You look way more buff. Is your dick still like the size of a root beer barrel? Well, no. I mean, not only did my personality get bomber, my dick got bomber too. It's not as small as it used to be. And obviously that's not a conversation I was having. But, I'd really have conversations. I'd be like, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. What do you do? I'm Ryan. I'm a writer. I wrote a book called Wasting Talent. Oh, where'd you write it? Oh, I wrote it up in the woods in Wisconsin. I had a little place. I was kind of on a retreat, you could say. Yeah, I'm on parole. Hello? And I'd have these fake conversations that I'd have with women. And that was really like, that was one thing that I did to pass the time, and that would pass a couple hours of the day. Another thing is any album that I could think of the lyrics to, or any song. I would try to do albums and try to like sing them in their totality, and that would eat up a huge chunk of time. Just these little things that I would do just to occupy my time in there. Either try to sing albums, have these faux conversations with women that didn't exist. That was a weird one, especially when like a CO would walk by and, just be like, yeah, I mean, have you ever tried anal? Oh, you haven't? No, yeah, I mean, anal's all okay. I think it's kind of overrated, yeah. The CO would look at me and be like, oh my God, because I'm just having like these straight conversations with myself. One day, so now I've been in there like 5 weeks. I have like a beard, I look like I have a volleyball, with like a handprint on it, and I'm like talking to it. No, I'm just kidding, but I really do have like a beard. It's another thing. They give you these little like shitty razors for your safety that are like this big with a little handle, and they're almost impossible to shave with. So I had like a full-on beard, and I looked like a refugee in there. It was crazy. I looked like Tom Hanks in Castaway for real. And they're like, Leone, you need to cuff up. I was like, why? What's up? And they're like, you need to come with us. And it was my case manager, my counselor, and a couple COs. They never go that deep to pick you up. So I knew that something was screwy in St. Louis. I knew that something was definitely not right. And so I cuff up, you always have to go, you cuff up, and then you have to back into the, into the bars. They open it, and then they let you out that way. But I cuff up, and they bring me into a small little room, and they're like, Ryan, your grandfather died. And I remember, he was old, it wasn't something that was sudden. But it just really sucked that I couldn't be there, like, at the end, to at least see him one last time. Couldn't even remember the last time that I did see him. I think I know. I said at his funeral, I said a story about the last time that I thought I had seen my grandfather, and I'll close the video with that, but let me get back to this really quick. So, they told me that he had died, and they're all kind of watching me. They're all kind of like, silent, like seeing if I'm going to crack or cry or whatever, and I didn't cry. They're like, do you want a phone call with your mom? I was like, yeah, of course. It was my mom's dad. And I called her, and she was crying, and I said, hey, Mom, how are you? And she's like, I'm good. Nano died. I said, yeah, I know, I heard. Are you okay? And she goes, yeah, he was a good man. I was like, yeah, he was. He raised a really good daughter, Mom, and I love you. And my family doesn't, it's kind of weird. We don't really have the kind of relationship where we say I love you that frequently. It's like, we don't say it every time we talk to each other. It's kind of like a rare moment to say it. But I told my mom I loved her, and they gave me a few minutes, and she was just kind of sniffling, and they escorted me back to my cell. A couple people, you know, are like hanging on the bars, and oh, what up, Leone? I was like, yeah, my grandpa just died. They're like, oh, you all right, dog? I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. And I remember I went back in the cell, and I just processed it, you know? It was like I said, it wasn't sudden, so I wasn't like traumatized by the fact that he had died. It was more regret, self-loathing. I was mad at myself. And I really started having this like very deep introspection where I thought, damn, I am in jail, in prison, for the same thing that I'm in prison for. And if I don't stop getting high, this is what my entire life is going to look like from this point forward. I'm always going to be locked up. I'm never going to be able to be there for my family. I mean, more than anything in that moment, all I wanted to do was like reach out and hug my mom. But it wasn't a possibility. It wasn't a possibility that I was going to go to the funeral. Once again, I'm the black sheep. I wasn't going to be able to be there. I always was missing holidays. But this was like the first death that we had had. And I wasn't going to be able to be there for it. And I just had this very profound, almost cathartic experience that day when my grandfather died. Gigi never wrote me, so I was already dealing with the loss of that, even though it was it wasn't a real relationship or anything. I still felt its loss, you know, and it was kind of like, you know, it just made me think that that's going to happen to me outside when I get with somebody that I really do care about. They're going to leave me over my addiction because I'm always doing impulsive stuff and I'm always getting in trouble for it. And then my grandfather died, and that was that was it. That was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I spent the last 6 weeks in there, however long I was there. I was there for 60 days altogether. I spent the last half of the time in there just really thinking about how I was never going to do drugs or alcohol again. Like, that was it. They had ruined my life. They're so destructive. Nothing good had ever come from me doing drugs. It was always shit like this. And I stayed sober, stayed clean and sober off everything. No Suboxone, no methadone, no weed, for 3 years following that point. And, I mean, I don't know. I had reached the rock bottom that they talk about. I'd reached my threshold where I just couldn't take any more. I just couldn't take any more pain. You know, I had endured way too much, and I wanted something better for myself. And, I mean, it was difficult that first year because people were doing drugs around me a lot because I was still in prison, so I was still around it. I always tell people if they get clean, like, it's a prerequisite. You have to change the group of people you're hanging out with. If you're around drugs, you're going to do them. I mean, I know I will. And I'll close the story with saying that the last time that I thought I saw my grandfather, I had said this story at my grandmother. My grandmother died after he did, a couple years later, and I was able to make it for her funeral. And I told this story. I didn't tell the parts about the heroin and everything I'm about to say here. I told a much more like, G-rated version of this story. But this is what I think the last time that I saw my grandfather was. And so Paul Harper, that guy that's in one of the previous videos with me, the guy that gets lit on fire. He's one of my best friends. Him and this other guy, Jeff DeRose, they're like my two best friends, right? And Jeff was living in Santa Barbara, and Paul and I were roommates in Monterey at the time. And we had this guy that lived in the complex named Ian, and he was like this big electronic music DJ. And he was like a computer hacker, and he rollerbladed, and I mean, whatever. It was whatever. And so he'd always tell us that he could get us tickets to like these really good rave parties that he was DJing. So he said there was this one coming up. It was called Pac-Man in San Francisco. And he said it was going to be one of the biggest parties of the year. He said, do you want to go to it? And the rave scene and Wasting Talent, I made it Mario Brothers themed, but it was based off this party right here. So he was giving us tickets, and it was normally, I don't know, so it was expensive to get into this, and we were getting free tickets, so that's why we wanted to go. So Jeff took the train up to Salinas, and incidentally, in the Salinas Chinatown, right where the train station is, that's where Paul and I were always scoring our heroin. Jeff was strung out on heroin in Santa Barbara. Paul and I were strung out in Monterey. So we go and we pick him up, and the first thing we do is we go score some crack and we go score some heroin right there at Chinatown. We're smoking crack, we're doing shots, and I'm driving the 85 Volvo at the time. This is before I was a drug dealer. Shortly before that, maybe like 6-7 months before all that. And we start driving up to San Francisco. Now, San Francisco is, I'm really bad with directions, but it's, I want to say like 2.5, 3 hours from Monterey. And we stopped and we got something to eat, and we made sure to save $20 because we were out of heroin and we had to score something when we got to San Francisco. So we were probably, from the last time we did the shot in Salinas, it was probably like 5 hours. And now it's like 4 in the morning. And it's pouring torrential rain in San Francisco, and we drive to the Tenderloin. We drive to like Market Street. And we get there, we pull up knowing that we're all getting dope sick. We have $20 left to our name. I think we had like gotten dollar items on the at Jack in the Box or something. That was the dinner that I'm talking about. I made it sound like we went out for some nice dinner. It was like dollar menus on the Jack in the Box menu. So we pull up, you know, San Francisco is very hilly. We pull to the bottom of this hill, and they're like, okay, who's going to score? And I was like, well, you guys are making it seem like you already decided I'm going to do it. Fuck that, I'm not doing it. They're like, all right, we'll do a rock, paper, scissors tournament, which is like absurd. It's like 4 in the morning on the Tenderloin. These 3 white kids were like sitting in the car playing rock, paper, scissors, and I lose, you know? I lost, so I had to go score. So I get out of the car, pouring rain. Anybody knows that you have like a water phobia when you're strung out on heroin or any kind of opiate anyway, but when you're dope sick and when it's like freezing cold Northern California rain, it feels like bullets are falling from the sky on you. It's like painful. And so I'm like shivering, and I'm like wearing a hood, and I'm just like running into the, you know, to the Tenderloin. I go up to the first guy I see. It's a black guy. And I'm like, hey man, hey, you got any Chiva? You got any black? And he's like, yeah man, what's up? I got you. What you need? I was like, yo, 20. I'm gonna get a dub. He's like, all right, cool. Spits it out of his mouth. I was like, oh, let me see it before I give you the money. So he hands it to me. I look at it, and it's a chunk of black tar. Smell it. It has that vinegary smell of heroin. I'm like, cool. Give him the money. I go back to the car. They're like, did you get it? I'm like, yeah, I got it. Let's go. So we take off, and we go up to like some residential neighborhood, and we pull up. I remember you could it overlooked, you know, the San Francisco Bay. It was a beautiful place to sit there and get well. So 3 of us were splitting a dub, if that gives you any like indication of how small our habit was. I mean, none of us had jobs at the time. Paul and I's primary source of hustling was like stealing chainsaws from fucking Home Depot. So it's not like we had some like Scarface habit at the time. But we were all splitting this dub, I remember. So, and try doing that. Try having 3 dope sick junkies trying to split $20 worth of heroin. Like that should be like an algebra problem, one of those like word problems. If you have 3 dope fiends, and you must, you know, anyway. So as soon as we put in the spoon and we're like cooking it up to do, Paul's like, hey man, this looks like fucking chocolate. I'm like, it's not chocolate, dude. Look, smell it. He's like, yeah, they dipped chocolate in fucking vinegar, you idiot. and I look at it, it's for sure chocolate. And we start cooking, and it's bubbling like chocolate. You know, it's like burning as we're trying to cook it. It's like, looks disgusting. It looks like it's chocolate for sure. And I'm like, fuck, no. And Jeff's just kind of we all have different reactions. I'm always like the super emotional. I yell, I throw stuff, like that's gonna make it better. And Jeff's always like the very quiet, like, this situation sucks. And Paul is kind of the same way. He just kind of accepts it. So I guess I'm the little bitch out of the crew. I'm always like crying and throwing a fit. And Paul's just like, I'm gonna shoot it anyway. And we look at him, we're like, what do you mean? I'm gonna shoot the chocolate, fuck it. Maybe there is something in there. So he shoots the chocolate. He's like, no, there's nothing in there. I wish I hadn't done that. So we don't get anything. Now, the next day, we wake up. We had parked somewhere, you know, by the beach or something, by the bay down there, by like the piers. I forget where we parked, but somewhere down there. And next morning we wake up. We didn't have dope to get well. We didn't have enough gas money to make it back to Monterey. We were kind of just stuck there. I don't know what our plan was. All we had was these tickets to this rave. And they're like, damn, this sucks. So Paul gets out, he panhandles, he gets some malt liquor. I don't know, I think he got like King Cobra or something. And he comes back, and we're all kind of just drinking whatever he had brought, whatever malt liquor he brought back. So we're drinking that. It's making us feel a little better, I guess. And we're kind of trying to figure out what we should do. And I go, hey, my grandparents live in South City, which is, you know, like 15 minutes from where we were. And they're like, yeah. I was like, dude, they'll probably give us money, and like they'll give us like food, and they'll like let us shower. And they're like, well, yeah, whatever. It's worth a shot. What else are we going to do? So we end up driving up to my grandparents' house. I drive them up there, and I knock on the door. And, you know, they're both... My grandma definitely got dementia. I think my grandfather did too. But they're both very lucid at this point. This is like, you know, 10 years before they pass away. And they see me, and they're like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. I'm like, it's so good to see you too. I kiss my grandma on the cheek, give my grandfather a firm, you know, handshake. We all smell like shit. Paul, you know, looks like, he's like really going through it. And Jeff too. I mean, all three of us, we just look horrible, you know. And so they bring us into the living room, and they're like, you just made it for happy hour. It was always happy hour with them. It was like 10 in the morning, but it was happy hour. So they make us some like, you know, screwdrivers or whatever they were doing. And we sit there and we start talking to my grandparents. And we probably talked for about an hour. And my grandma goes, now where are you living now? To me. And I go, I'm living in Monterey. I don't live in Santa Barbara anymore. And she goes, oh, Santa Barbara. I was like, no, I live in Monterey. She's like, I know, but I heard you say Santa Barbara. She's like, you know, my daughter and my grandson live in Santa Barbara. And I am honestly like, damn, do I have like more family that I don't know about? And I go, whoa, Noni, who do you think I am? And they both look at each other, and they're like, Bobo. I'm like, Bobo? I was like, no, I'm your grandson. It's Ryan. And they're like, oh. We didn't even realize it was you. We were literally in there for an hour before they figured out that it was me. And I had told that story in a much more, like, PG way. I didn't say that I was, like, strung out and that, like, I get burned by some, like, homeless dude the night before for chocolate dipped in vinegar that my friend Paul shot up. But the point of the story is how hospitable they were. You know, they gave us, they made us food, they gave us drinks, and I think they gave me like $300, and we were able to go score, and we were able to go to the rave. I think that was the last time that I'd ever seen my grandfather. And you know, as funny as some of the elements of that story are, you know, I look back and I was kind of just ashamed that the last time he saw me, I was in that kind of condition. Because I really loved my grandfather, and I really loved my extended family. I drifted further and further away from them as I progressed with my addiction. And I lost that innocence. And, you know, once you lose that innocence, it's very hard to get back to that place where people don't kind of look at you sideways. And that might be me just in my own head, but I did lose some of my innocence. And I regret the fact that the last time that I ever spoke with my grandfather was through a prison phone call, and that he wasn't lucid enough to understand me. And then the time before that, I was strung out like a lab rat. And, you know, I wish that I'd gotten real closure and a real chance to say goodbye. But perhaps he was looking out for me after he passed away, because I ended up staying clean and sober for 3 years. You know, 3 years for me was miraculous. And we will get into that and my final days at Federal Correctional Institution, Oxford, in my 5 years in federal prison, part 27. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. Hit like, subscribe, GoFundMe. Palabra.